Welcome to our weekly missions roundtable. And you guys, we got a special guest star. We have one of the founding members of the West Coast Hub. This is like, he's like one of the Michael Jordans or LeBron James or Kobe Bryants of the West Coast Hub. We got our boy, David Choi, our former administrative assistant. And he is joining us from, where are you joining us from, David?
I'm in Sydney, Australia right now. So I think we're 18 hours ahead.
Well, thank you for waking up so early, 8 a.m. right there.
Yeah, that's not that early, but you're welcome, Anthony.
Anything for us, man. We love you. We are joined not only by David Choi, but we are joined by David Choi's replacement, Ali Azrati, who is our new and approved administrative assistant.
No,
Much
David
improved.
David taught me everything for this. He was awesome.
But did he
much improved. We could be honest. The hub is in better hands now.
Just playing. But guys, listen, David is here with us from again, Sydney, Australia, and it's a treat. We're going to be able to hear from him about his call to missions and also what he's doing over there in Australia now as a missionary with MTW. So, Ali, take it away.
Yes. So first, we would love to hear, David, about your call to missions and how you knew, just basically how you knew God was calling you to go cross-culturally.
Yeah. The full story, goes back to even junior high, but not in that sense that back then I knew I was called to missions or something like that. But it's one of those things where in hindsight, I can see and piece together, all these different things that God was doing in my life. So I'll try to give the short version because this is a short show. I'll put it this way. I remember when I first actually started getting more involved in missions and, going with MTW and all of that. And I would meet a lot of these other missionaries. And I heard pretty often oh, I always knew. Or as soon as I became a believer, I knew I was called to go overseas. I just always had this draw. That was not the case for me at all. I never thought I would live anywhere else, let alone missions, but I never thought I would move anywhere else because I grew up in Southern California, love Southern California. Basically thought that's it. I wouldn't even move to another state. Why would I go anywhere else? That's kind of how I always thought. But over time, what happened was I became a teacher, and I also got more involved in short-term missions. And I kind of thought, well, as a teacher, I have vacation times that most adults don't. And so I thought, okay, I've gotten to know some of these missionaries over the years that we support. I've seen the teams go. This is something that as an adult, I can help serve the church, help serve our missionaries, and try to kind of do what I can to, take some of those pressures away from the missionaries and also be a more constant side on our church to support missions in that way. So I thought, okay, I'm a teacher. That's what I plan on doing for the rest of my life, which means I'll always have these holidays. And so I can kind of keep going and support that way. And then what happened was our church had been going to Cambodia for a number of years. And so I helped kind of solidify that relationship with the short-term missions program, like I was saying. And then we also had a missionary in Australia. So Jim and Claudia Jung had been in Australia at that point for, I think, just over 10 years. And so we said, what we've been doing with Cambodia can also figure out, we know that it'll look different with Australia, different ministries, different place, different missionaries, different needs. But can we go and kind of start to assess that and see what can we do over there? So the short of it was that our pastor from New Life, from my home church, came over as a guest speaker. I came over with another couple people, and one of my jobs was kind of, the traditional short-term team that served with the needs, which was primarily this campus ministry camp. But while I was here, my other job was to sort of look around and to assess what's going on, what are the needs, what's going on with MTW over here, meet the ministry leaders, and try to find people from our church, specifically, saying, oh, okay, so that's one of the needs. I know people at my church specifically that would be great for that, and try to pick them and say, hey, have you considered missions? So I was supposed to find someone else, is what I thought. But what I kind of found was that at the time, things were expanding. Like the ministries were, God was really blessing them. And so they were growing. So there was the campus ministry that was on 4 campuses. Now it's on 5. There was a new city worker ministry that was kind of reaching out to the workers in the downtown area, which is called the CBD here, which is also kind of the next step after campus ministry. There was a church plant that was growing, very young. Like even now over here, I think I'm the 5th oldest person at the church. So very young, but very vibrant and growing.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there were other ministries growing in other parts of Australia. And there was a new look towards the Pacific Islands also to see what could MTW do over there. And so things were really expanding, and it felt like when I came to look for what's kind of the primary need right now, it was, there's lots of things to serve with locally, which I am doing now, but it was also kind of more organizationally, kind of that background stuff that I like doing to help just coordinate things. And I had always been doing it in the church, and I had been doing more with the short-term missions program. That was really the growing need, because there were now expanding new ministries that I could sort of help coordinate from the background. So like I jokingly say that God tricked me. They said, hey, just take a look, find someone from church, and then, try to convince them to go over. And then while I was here, because my pastor was here too. And so he saw the same thing that I saw. He brought it up and didn't know that I had already been thinking about it, because I kind of saw it myself too. And he said, hey, have you thought about it? So I think that's how God had to work with me. It was like, hey, you're not listening. Like, yes, you were a sender, a supporter, short-term trip leader. That was one time of your life. That's one season. Now you're meant to be a goer, and like, this is it. And so he had to make it like very, very clear. And so again, it was something I never had considered. But what I realized again in hindsight was when I started telling people back home, like, hey, I'm thinking of this missions thing. I think to other people, it wasn't surprising. Like to me, I was like, oh, I'm so surprised. I never thought this would happen. And then other people thought, oh yeah, that makes sense. And so I took that as a good, the external calling.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was the internal calling that I was fighting.
Yeah.
Internally, that's awesome. But God made it very clear, and obviously to the people around you as well.
Hey, God pulled a Jonah. Oh, you gonna go. You gonna go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was like, no. Why? No, I love California.
West Coast, best coast. That's what
Hey,
we
I was gonna say, listen, ain't nothing wrong with loving Cali though. You know what I mean?
That's correct.
If loving Cali is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Well, that's awesome about your calling, and it's so reassuring to know that you had the feeling from God within yourself and your relationship with God, but also from your pastor and those around you. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Australia, and if it is any different than what you thought you would be doing when you left us earlier this year.
Well, Ali, let's be honest. We should be asking him, what is he not doing? This man is forever working. So yeah, David, what are you up to over in Sydney, man? What are you doing ministry-wise?
Yeah, so I'll explain kind of what the ministries are here, what's going on. Obviously, as you guys know, like I landed, and then that was shortly after when, borders closed and all the restrictions came into place. So it's tricky, but I'll explain it this way, in kind of different, like local to larger regional things. And so because officially my title here is regional administrator, but locally I serve in different ways, if that makes sense. And so starting at like the local is the Sydney team. And so in Sydney, there's, like I said, there's a campus ministry called Student Outreach to the World. There's the worker outreach, which is called City Sanctum, and then the church, which is Harbor City Church. And so the campus ministry is now on 5 campuses. City Sanctum, one of the difficulties of that was because of COVID. That was meant to reach out to workers who are in the city. And so it's after work, but no one's going to the city right now. And so right now that one's kind of more on hold. And so I'm working just with the leadership. And so we're kind of growing the leadership and then trying to continue planning for when things do open up. So is mostly online also right now because most of those universities went online. And so again, a lot of it is development and planning for the future right now. So they're still doing some weekly meetings, and thankfully we have some great Australian interns and pastors who are handling kind of the day-to-day, and then the student leadership has now been raised up to a point where a lot of the daily things are run, and so a lot of it is again training developed for the future. Harbor City Church, it is also online right now. I mean, that's everything's Zoom, right?
Yep.
So Harbor City Church is online. But with the church, like I said earlier, the church is very young demographically. And so I think I landed and became the fifth oldest person at the church, which is new. Like even my family, I'm like the youngest sibling, and so I'm used to being the young one, and then immediately I became the old one. But it's again a testament to how God raised me. Is I'm very thankful that I had these older brothers and older sisters in the church, who were the ones who would rebuke me if they needed to, the ones who discipled me and mentored me and taught me. And so I tell, whenever I meet with Australians here, I tend to tell them, all I do is tell you stuff that other people told me.
Yeah.
Like I have no original thoughts. Really, it's just, I don't remember who I'm stealing this from, but I know that this is an idea from someone else.
Yeah.
Somewhere else, some sermon, a podcast, one of the Bible studies at church, something. And so at the church, it's helping support the kind of logistical ministries, and then also with, again, because a lot of it's online right now, we have this time to start like revamping kind of the membership curriculum, discipleship curriculum. And so I participated in some of those classes, and I'm also trying to revise those materials and then meet with people and do all that. I mean, think of what a church does anywhere, and you can kind of extrapolate all the same things. So that's the local. So that's where I'm more like hands-on with the ministries, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so more like directly involved.
Yeah.
And then on the next scale, it's Australia. And so there's another MTW team in Western Australia. And so we work with them. And so with them, again, because it's like 5.5 hours flight across the country. Australia's a big country.
Yeah.
So that's more on the administrative side. And so working with their leadership and helping with whatever they need. And then with like anything new that would branch out Australia-wide, so I'm in on those conversations. And so we're always looking for new opportunities. One thing that, again, COVID kind of put on hold was we were looking at more Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander outreach.
Yeah.
So that's something actually that, like MTW has a great video when the Reformed African American vision trip came over. And so that's something, like if you guys can link to that video is awesome. And so we're really hoping to get especially minorities for this. Not that it has to be, but what we have seen is that there is a natural kind of affinity with the minority experience, including with African Americans or even Asians, to Aboriginals, because there isn't the history of like the white cultural barriers of the history of Australian or Europeans coming into Australia and the settlement and all of that. And so the same walls don't go up when an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander meets an African American.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of a natural way that we think could be used for the gospel. It could be used to bring revitalization, to grow the church, and to make disciples. And so projects like that, I'm sort of involved in helping to recruit and plan and help with the logistics of those things. And then, okay, so that was Sydney, Australia, and then what's called Australasia.
See, this is what I'm talking. I told you, what is this man not doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
What do you have time in the day? Newly married too.
Bro,
thankfully, I really appreciate that we have teams.
Yes.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, I'm sharing what other people are doing. And so it's just that getting to work alongside and help. So Australasia. So now we have Australia, New Zealand, and then that's also the South Pacific Islands, which right now we're trying to reach Vanuatu, Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, and American Samoa, which is American territory. So in New Zealand, we have a team over there that also partners with the denomination over there, the Reformed Presbyterian denomination. And then the islands is one of the newer ministries. And so this actually works with something that started 2 years ago called the Island to Island Partnership. And so with 2 denominations in Australia, 1 in New Zealand, and then with MTW, PC America, we sort of realized that we're all kind of in our own ways trying to reach some of these islands. And so we thought, hey, we're together in this, or we should be together in this. And so this partnership was formed. And last year, I got to be part of the team that went in to, in some of the islands, establish the first relationship. And so some of them, we like literally would somehow get an email address of someone, and then we would land and then hope we could meet them. And so it actually, again, God had been working. And so things this year, unfortunately, have been a lot on hold because the islands have been closed off. And like Zoom is not the best way to reach and communicate with people in the islands. So we've had to do our best, emailing and trying to just keep up some relationship. But we're planning a larger conference to gather the leaders from Australia, New Zealand, the US, and the different island leaders that we met to really get together and share the needs, vision cast, pray, and then connect, basically connect all of us to say, okay, we're like-minded Christians. How can we work together to connect the islands, to connect outside resources, and to do what we can to grow the church? So that is one of the new exciting things. Again, recruiting heavily for that. And so if you want to live in tropical paradise, it's not the worst place to live in some of these islands. But there are lots of gospel needs there.
Yeah.
And so we really are recruiting for this. So prayerfully consider. I'm looking at you two right now, just because you're on the screen.
Do I speak Farsi there?
But virtually also looking at you, the ones who are watching this through your own screen. So yes.
Yeah, so lots of needs, lots of exciting things happening. And then after Australasia, which is by MTW, we call it a region. And then we have Asia Pacific. And so Asia Pacific, MTW has amazing missionaries and teams like spread out all over Asia Pacific and other regions. And so with this, again, because of my administrative role, I'm serving on the communications team. And so this is, again, like a small way that I serve, but it's in a lot of ways what first got me into missions was not thinking of myself as a missionary when I was doing those short-term things, but thinking, how can I support missionaries who I firmly believe are much more qualified than me to do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And so with this, it's another way where I feel like I can help support other missionaries and help support what God is doing and help support the Great Commission. Right.
Amen.
Amen.
Dude, so basically, for those of you who are watching, and let's say they want to know more about you, David, about your ministry, where can they go to find out more about you?
The MTW website. So go there, you search for David Choi. You'll see me there. MTW also has a great Vimeo page with videos.
Yes.
Thankfully, when I was still with the hub, one of the videographers came out to film some of the 1% churches in our area in California. And I happened to be driving him around. So we made a couple videos also that talk a little bit about a different thing about how I got into missions. But like I told you, there's like the 2-hour version of the story. And so there's different little snippets.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, listen, David, we appreciate you, brother, as always. Thank you for hopping on with us. You guys, you've heard the man, the myth, the legend speak, Mr. David Choi himself. You know now some of what's going on in that region, Australasia, and you hear about some of the needs. Would you please pray for two things. Pray and see if the Lord would have you go over there on a vision trip, to go over there short-term, long-term, and also if God would have you to give and partner financially. We should be praying. You should be praying for David Choi and his ministry, just like we're all called to pray. But pray and see if the Lord would have you to go yourself or to give sacrificially to the work of the kingdom over in that area of the world. If you guys want to see more of our content, you can look up our content in 3 different places. We have our Facebook page. Just search MTW West Coast Office. Number 2, we have our YouTube page, youtube.com/MTW West Coast. And then we have our official MTW page, mtw.org/West Coast. If you guys have any questions, concerns, emotional outbursts, don't be afraid to hit your boy up, Anthony.English@mtw.org. We have Ali.Hazarati@mtw.org. And we have Mike Pettingill, our fearless leader, Mike.Pettingill@mtw.org. We would love to address any concerns, answer any questions you may have. And if you have emotional outbursts, we probably just ignore it. So make those questions and concerns. No, just playing. We love you guys. And thank you for tuning in this week. God bless you.
Thanks. Thanks, David.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you,
David.
guys.